Take a breath and imagine sinking. Past the sunlit surface where the waves catch the light, past the last blue glow, down through a fading twilight, until the final photon of sunlight gives up and the world goes utterly, perfectly black. Keep sinking. The pressure builds until it could crush a submarine like a soda can. The temperature drops to just above freezing. There is no light here, no plants, no warmth, and no way back up. This is the largest living space on the planet, and almost none of us will ever see it. And yet, in this crushing, freezing, endless dark, something is glowing, something is hunting, something is waiting. Welcome to the deep ocean, the strangest world on Earth, hidden right beneath our own. And by the end of this, you will understand how life not only survives down here, but thrives in a place that should be impossible. You are about to meet creatures that glow, creatures that fish with living lanterns, creatures the size of a school bus, and creatures that feed on nothing but the raw chemistry of the planet. None of them are science fiction. Every single one is real, and every single one is alive somewhere beneath you right now. Let's get our bearings, because the numbers alone are hard to believe. The ocean covers most of our planet, and its average depth is around 3,500 meters. But the sunlight, the light that powers almost all life you have ever seen, only reaches down about 200 meters. Everything below that is called the midnight zone, and it makes up the vast majority of the space where life can exist on Earth. If you took every forest, every grassland, every desert and mountain, all of it, and added it together, it would be a thin skin compared to this enormous black volume of water. The deep sea is not a strange corner of our world, it is the default. The land we live on, bathed in sunlight, is the exception. So the first problem for anything living down here is obvious. Without sunlight, how do you see, how do you find food, and how do you find each other in the dark? The answer is one of the most beautiful tricks in all of nature. If there is no light, you make your own. It is called bioluminescence, a chemical reaction inside the body that produces a cold, living light with almost no heat. And down in the deep, it is everywhere. Scientists estimate that in the midnight zone, the great majority of animals can produce their own light. This is not a rare superpower here. It is the normal way of life. A glow in the deep can mean a dozen different things. It can be a lure, a trap, a warning, a disguise, a distress flare, or a whispered message between mates. Nowhere else on Earth does light carry so many meanings, and no animal wields that light more famously than the anglerfish. Picture a creature the size of your fist, mostly mouth, with a face only the abyss could love. Rising from its head is a thin fishing rod of flesh, and dangling at the tip is a glowing lure. That light is not made by the fish itself. It is made by billions of glowing bacteria living inside the lure, a partnership between two completely different forms of life. In the total darkness, a small curious animal sees that gentle glow and swims toward it, hoping for food or company. It comes closer and closer, and then the darkness explodes. The anglerfish's jaws are lined with long, needle-like teeth that fold inward, so anything that goes in cannot come back out. Its stomach can stretch to swallow prey larger than its own body, because in a place where a meal might come only once in weeks, you can never afford to let one escape. But the anglerfish hides an even stranger secret, one that sounds like something out of a nightmare. The fearsome hunter with the glowing lure is always female. The males are tiny, a fraction of her size, born with one desperate purpose: to find a female in the endless dark before he starves. When a male finally finds her, he bites onto her side and holds on. And then something extraordinary happens. His body begins to fuse with hers. His skin melts into her skin, their blood vessels join, and he slowly dissolves away until he is little more than a permanent lump on her body, feeding from her blood, providing her with what she needs to reproduce whenever she chooses. He gives up being a separate creature entirely. In the deep, even romance is ruthless. The anglerfish is famous, but it is far from alone in this glowing arms race. Deeper still swims a fish that looks like living midnight, the dragonfish. Its body is so black it absorbs almost all the light that touches it. one of the darkest materials found anywhere in nature, so that even in a searchlight it would appear as a hole in the water, and it has a weapon almost no other creature can match. Most deep-sea animals glow blue, and their eyes can only see blue. But the dragonfish produces a red light from beneath its eyes, a color the animals around it are completely blind to. It swims through the dark, shining an invisible searchlight, spotting its prey while remaining perfectly unseen. It hunts with a light that its victims can never even know is there. Now let's talk about the force that shapes every single body down here, the one enemy no creature can glow its way past. Pressure. On the surface, the air presses on you at a comfortable weight you have never even noticed. But water is heavy, and as you descend, its weight piles up fast. Every 10 meters down adds roughly the pressure of another entire atmosphere. Sink 1,000 meters and the pressure is 100 times what you feel right now. Reach the deepest trenches nearly 11,000 meters down, and the pressure climbs past 1,000 atmospheres. That is the weight of dozens of jumbo jets pressing down on every square inch. A human sent to those depths without protection would be crushed instantly. So how does anything live there? The secret is that these animals refuse to fight the pressure at all. They contain almost no air, no lungs, and no rigid gas pockets to be squeezed. Their bodies are mostly water, and water barely compresses, so the crushing weight passes straight through them. They match the ocean instead of resisting it, letting the pressure that would kill us simply flow through their soft, watery flesh. Even the tiny building blocks of their bodies are rebuilt for the deep. The proteins and fats in a shallow water fish would seize up and stop working under this kind of weight, like a machine clogged with grit. So deep-sea animals carry special molecules woven through their cells that keep everything flexible and running smoothly, even under a load that would grind ordinary life to a halt. The pressure that we imagine as a wall is for them simply the air they were born to breathe. You can see that idea taken to its dreamlike extreme in one deep-sea creature that briefly became world famous. Meet the blobfish. In photographs taken on the deck of a ship, it looks like a sad melting lump of pale jelly, and the internet crowned it the ugliest animal on Earth. But that image is a lie, a portrait of a corpse. In its real home, more than 1,000 meters down, the blobfish is a perfectly normal fish. Its body has almost no hard bone and no swim bladder. Instead, it is built of a soft, gelatinous flesh only slightly denser than the water around it, which lets it hover just above the seafloor with barely any effort, waiting for food to drift by. It never wastes energy chasing prey. Down in the crushing dark, it is elegant, patient, and perfectly designed. It only becomes a monster when we drag it up into our world, where the pressure it was built for suddenly vanishes and its delicate body collapses. The deep also plays tricks with size, and this is where it gets truly bizarre. There is a strange rule down here called deep-sea gigantism. Certain animals that are small and unremarkable in shallow water grow to shocking, monstrous proportions in the cold and the dark. Take the giant isopod. In a rock pool, its cousins are the little gray pillbugs that curl into a ball no bigger than your fingernail. But cruising along the deep ocean floor, that same basic body plan swells into an armored creature the size of a small dog, scuttling across the mud on rows of legs, feeding on whatever dead thing falls from above. Why do they grow so large? The cold slows their bodies down, letting them live longer and grow steadily over many years. And a bigger body holds heat and moisture better and can survive far longer between the rare meals that fall from the world above. In the deep, going big is a survival strategy. But the true legend of deep-sea gigantism is a creature that haunted sailors' stories for centuries before anyone proved it was real. The giant squid. For generations, tales of a monster with grasping arms pulling ships beneath the waves were dismissed as pure fantasy. But the giant squid is absolutely real, and it can grow longer than a school bus. It has the largest eyes of any animal that has ever lived, each one the size of a dinner plate, evolved to gather the faintest hints of light in a world with almost none, perhaps to spot the shadow of its one great enemy approaching. Because even the giant squid is hunted, the sperm whale dives thousands of meters down into the black to find it, and their battles leave the whales scarred for life with circular marks from the squid's grasping suckers. For centuries we knew the giant squid only from these scars and from dead bodies washed ashore. It was not until this century that we finally filmed a living one in its own domain, a monster that turned out to be real all along. So imagine you are a small hunter down here, surrounded by darkness, pressure, and the ever-present threat of starving. How on earth do you catch a meal you cannot see? Evolution's answers are terrifyingly clever. The viperfish carries fangs so long they will not even fit inside its mouth, curving up past its own eyes, so it can impale prey by simply lunging forward like a living harpoon. The gulper eel is almost nothing but an enormous mouth attached to a whip-thin tail. It can unhinge its jaws and balloon its throat to swallow prey far larger than its own slender body. Because when food is this scarce, you must be able to eat absolutely anything you encounter, and the hatchetfish turns the darkness itself into a weapon. Its body is coated on the underside with tiny lights that it tunes to exactly match the faint glow filtering down from far above. To a predator lurking below, looking up, the hatchetfish simply vanishes, its silhouette erased against the dim ceiling of the sea. It hides in plain sight by wearing the light of the world it left behind. And the reason all of these hunters must be so extreme comes down to one brutal fact of life in the abyss. Food is almost unimaginably rare. A deep-sea fish might go weeks, even months between meals, drifting through the dark and burning as little energy as possible while it waits. That is why so many of them are built around one enormous mouth and a stretchable stomach. It is not greed, it is desperation. When a meal finally appears out of the blackness, it may be the only one for a very long time. So a body that can seize and swallow almost anything is not a luxury down here. It is the difference between living and slowly starving in the dark. There are gentler wonders too, drifting through the same black water. The deep is filled with creatures that look less like animals and more like living glass and starlight. Comb jellies pulse through the dark, rows of tiny beating paddles catching what little light there is and scattering it into shimmering, rippling rainbows along their transparent bodies. Some jellyfish, when they are startled, put on a dazzling light show, spinning pinwheels of blue fire across their bells, not to attract prey, but to survive. It is a burglar alarm. The flash is meant to draw an even larger predator to come and attack whatever is attacking them. And the vampire squid, despite its sinister name, is one of the most peaceful animals in the entire ocean. It does not suck blood at all. It drifts calmly through the low oxygen depths, and instead of ink it releases a glowing cloud of glittering mucus to confuse anything that threatens it, then simply slips away into the dark. And there is the dumbo octopus, perhaps the most charming creature of the abyss, flapping a pair of soft ear-like fins to swim gracefully through some of the deepest water any octopus dares to go, looking for all the world like something drawn for a fairy tale. And now we come to the greatest question of all, the one that changed how scientists think about life itself. Every creature we have met so far survives on the same slow, sad rain. Because there is no sunlight, there are no plants, and so almost every deep-sea animal ultimately depends on scraps drifting down from the sunlit surface, a constant gentle snowfall of dead plankton, waste, and the remains of everything that dies above. Scientists call it marine snow. It falls silently and endlessly, feeding the entire abyss. And it seemed obvious that without the sun, without that snowfall from above, no true ecosystem could ever exist. For all of history, we believed sunlight was the ultimate source of nearly all life. And then, deep on the ocean floor, we found something that broke the rule completely. Along the great ridges where the seafloor splits apart, cracks in the crust let seawater sink down toward the planet's hot interior, where it is superheated and blasted back out through towering mineral chimneys. These are hydrothermal vents, and the water gushing from them can reach hundreds of degrees, thick with chemicals and belching clouds of black minerals like underwater volcanoes. It is one of the most hostile environments imaginable. And when scientists first sent cameras down to these vents, they were stunned by what they saw. Not a barren wasteland, but a teeming, crowded oasis of life, packed as densely as any rainforest, in a place with no sunlight at all. The key to this impossible garden is invisible. Tiny bacteria there have mastered a trick called chemosynthesis. Instead of using the energy of sunlight like every plant on the surface, they harvest chemical energy straight from the poisonous chemicals pouring out of the vents, building the base of an entire food web out of what is, to almost everything else, deadly toxic gas. And crowded around these vents are creatures found nowhere else. Giant tube worms taller than a person stand in swaying forests of white and blood red. They have no mouth, no stomach, and no gut at all. Instead, their bodies are packed with billions of those chemical-eating bacteria, and the worm and the bacteria feed each other in a perfect partnership, life built on the raw chemistry of the earth itself. Ghostly pale crabs and armored snails and blind shrimps swarm across the rock. An entire thriving world that owes nothing whatsoever to the sun. This changed everything. It meant that life does not actually need sunlight. It needs only an energy source and liquid water. And that single discovery reached far beyond the ocean, because if life can bloom around chemical vents in the crushing dark of our own abyss, then perhaps it could exist beneath the frozen crust of an ice moon out at Jupiter or Saturn, where oceans are hidden under kilometers of ice. The strangest creatures of our own deep may be pointing us toward the answer to whether we are alone in the universe. And here is perhaps the most humbling truth of all. We have mapped the surface of the Moon and Mars in stunning detail, yet we have explored only a tiny fraction of our own deep ocean floor. More people have walked on the Moon than have descended to the deepest trench of the sea. Every single time we send a vehicle down into the dark, we find species entirely new to science, creatures no human eye has ever seen. The deep ocean is not some finished, catalogued place. It is a frontier as wild and unknown as any distant planet, and it is right here, beneath the waves we swim in every summer. So think again about that black, silent world, the glowing lure of the anglerfish, the invisible red searchlight of the dragonfish, the tube worms feeding on the fire of the earth. Life did not shrink from the darkness and the pressure and the cold. It poured into them, and it invented forms so strange we can barely believe they are real. The deep ocean shows us that life is not fragile and picky. It is relentless, endlessly inventive, and it will find a way in the most impossible places imaginable. So here is what we want to know from you. Of all these creatures of the abyss, which one amazed you the most? The anglerfish that lures prey with living light, the giant squid with eyes the size of dinner plates, or the tube worms that live on pure chemistry with no sunlight at all? Tell us in the comments. And if the deep ocean left you looking at the sea a little differently, stay with us. Because our planet is still full of impossible places and impossible things that turn out to be true.